Beloved chosen one, this is the moment when the silence begins to break, because too much has happened in your life for it to be called chance, and too many doors have closed in unnatural ways for you to keep pretending that everything around you has been ordinary. You have felt it for years, even when you could not explain it, even when the people around you tried to reduce it to bad timing, oversensitivity, or imagination. Deep inside, you knew there was something different about the resistance that followed you. You knew there was a strange pressure on your calling, a strange shadow over your progress, a strange effort to keep you confused about who you are and why your life has never fit into the neat patterns that seem to work for everyone else. You are not here by accident. You are not listening to this because an algorithm happened to place these words in your path. This is divine timing, and heaven is not whispering to you today. Heaven is making something plain. There are truths about your life that have been hidden in plain sight, and the reason they were hidden is because once you fully see them, you will never again bow to the lie that you are small, forgotten, delayed beyond repair, or spiritually unimportant. The enemy does not spend this much energy suppressing what carries no threat. Darkness does not study, stalk, and resist a life that has no assignment attached to it. The battle around you has always been revealing the value within you, even while it tried to convince you that you were being punished, overlooked, or rejected. Think about the pattern. There were moments when you were ready to move forward, and then confusion fell over everything like a curtain. There were relationships that entered your life with smiles, only to leave behind discouragement, betrayal, and exhaustion. There were times when your spirit picked up on something before your mind could name it, and instead of trusting that discernment, you were taught to dismiss it. Little by little, the pressure around you was not only meant to delay your steps, and it was meant to make you doubt your own spiritual senses. Because if the enemy can make a chosen one distrust what God placed within them, then the battle becomes easier. Not because you are weak, but because a person who has been trained to question their own God-given perception will hesitate at the very moment they are supposed to move. That hesitation has cost you peace. It has cost you confidence. It has cost you time. But hear this clearly. It has not canceled your calling. The fact that it has been hard does not mean you missed God. The fact that it has been lonely does not mean heaven stepped away from you. The fact that you have been misunderstood does not mean you were wrong for being different. In many cases, what made people uncomfortable around you was not arrogance, not pride, not some flaw they tried to pin on you. It was the unsettling effect of your presence. Something in you refuses to agree with darkness. Even when you say very little, something in you carries a frequency of truth, and truth has always made hidden things tremble. There were rooms where you entered quietly, yet people shifted. There were conversations where you sensed the surface words were not the real story. There were seasons where you could feel that you were being spiritually pressed, yet no one around you had language for it. This is why the message matters now. You need to understand that your life has been contested because it has meaning. You have been opposed because you carry consequence. You have been targeted because there is an opening over your future that the kingdom of darkness hoped you would never recognize. They tried to hide this from you, not merely by attacking you openly, but by exhausting you slowly, by distracting you subtly, by surrounding you with just enough noise to keep you from hearing the deeper truth. And the deeper truth is this: you were never ordinary. You were marked for purpose. You were formed with spiritual sensitivity. And that sensitivity was never a weakness to be medicated away by unbelief or mocked into silence by people who cannot understand your walk. It was part of your design. You were meant to notice what others ignore. You were meant to feel the weight of atmospheres. You were meant to carry compassion without surrendering discernment. You were meant to hear the warning before the collapse, to sense the shift before the crowd catches up, to stay awake while others remain comfortable in a sleeping world. That kind of calling comes with pressure, and because of that pressure, many chosen ones spend years thinking they are broken when they are actually burdened with unrecognized purpose. So let this settle into your spirit now. The strange story of your life is beginning to make sense. The pain did not arrive without reason. The delays were not random. The misunderstandings were not always about your personality. Some of what happened around you happened because the truth about you had to be concealed long enough to keep you in a battle with your own identity. But that season is ending. This is why you feel the stirring now. This is why the scales are starting to fall. This is why your soul has been restless. You are not merely seeking comfort anymore. You are seeking revelation, and revelation changes everything once it enters the heart of someone who has suffered under confusion for too long. So before you go any further, make this act of agreement and type 777 in the comments. Not as a ritual, but as a declaration that you are ready to see what was hidden and break your agreement with every lie that tried to define you. Because from this point on, you cannot afford to keep calling yourself what pain called you. You cannot afford to wear labels that were created in seasons of betrayal, fear, or spiritual warfare. You cannot afford to keep shrinking so that people with no vision for your destiny can feel comfortable around you. What is happening now is an unveiling. What is happening now is a holy interruption. And what they tried to keep from you is about to become impossible to ignore. Because the God who chose you is also the God who reveals, restores, and calls his own out of hiding at the appointed time. And when you begin to see the pattern clearly, you also begin to understand that your pain was never random, never scattered, never meaningless. It only felt that way while you were standing in the middle of it, trying to survive one hard season after another without a map, without language, and without many people who could truly see what was happening to your soul. But now the thread starts to appear. The betrayals were connected, the delays were connected, the strange losses, the misunderstandings, the closed doors, the moments when it felt like everything stable in your life was being shaken at once. All of it carried a pattern, and once you recognize the pattern, you can no longer call it bad luck. You can no longer reduce it to coincidence. You begin to realize that repeated pain often gathers around repeated purpose. That is the part many people never tell you. They tell you to stay strong. They tell you to pray. They tell you to keep going. But they do not always tell you that when your life carries spiritual weight, the pressure often comes in layers. It comes in ways that touch the same tender places again and again until you are tempted to believe that those places define you. Your peace gets hit more than once. Your confidence gets hit more than once. Your sense of belonging gets hit more than once. Your hope gets hit more than once. The enemy understands repetition. He knows that if he cannot destroy a chosen one in one moment, he will try to weary them across many moments. He will try to create so much accumulated sorrow that you start speaking over yourself from exhaustion instead of from truth. But what if the pattern itself is telling you something holy? What if the repeated pressure is not proof that you are abandoned, but proof that your life carries more meaning than you realized? What if the battles around your identity, your peace, and your endurance have been so intense because there is something in you that cannot be allowed to wake up easily? This is why you must stop reading your story as a pile of disconnected disappointments. You must begin reading it as a contested assignment, because chaos says nothing matters, but resistance often reveals that something matters very deeply. This is where the story of Job enters so naturally into what you have lived. Job was not chosen for suffering because he was weak. He was not targeted because he was empty. He was not suddenly surrounded by loss because heaven had forgotten his name. The very opposite was true. There was something established in Job, something seen and known before the storm ever broke over his life. And yet his story became one of stripping, shaking, confusion, grief, and unbearable silence. What he lost was not small. It was layer upon layer, one blow after another, until the weight of it all seemed too much for any heart to carry. That is why Job matters here. Because many chosen ones know what it feels like to be hit in succession. One thing falls apart, then another, until the soul can barely separate one grief from the next. And in that kind of suffering, the mind starts reaching for explanations. Maybe I did something wrong. Maybe God stepped away. Maybe I am being punished. Maybe this is the end. Job knew that territory. He knew what it meant to sit in pain while other voices tried to interpret his suffering for him. He knew what it meant to be surrounded by assumptions when what he needed was understanding. He knew what it meant to carry grief so deep that words themselves could barely hold it. And yet even there, the hidden truth remained. Job's pain was real, but it was not the full story. His losses were devastating, but they were not the final meaning of his life. What people saw on the surface was collapse. What heaven saw was a man being revealed through fire. Job was not being erased. He was being proven in a realm deeper than human opinion. That is why his story connects so closely to yours. Because there have been seasons where people looked at your life and quietly formed conclusions that were far too small. They saw the struggle and assumed weakness. They saw the delay and assumed failure. They saw the sorrow and assumed God had moved on. But they did not know what was being tested, what was being refined, what was being anchored inside you while everything external seemed unstable. And if you are honest, some of your deepest battles did not come from what you lost. They came from what the losses tried to say about you. Loss tries to rename you. Delay tries to rename you. Rejection tries to rename you. Suffering tries to convince you that you are less than what God declared. That is the true violence of prolonged pain. It does not only wound the heart, it whispers false definitions into the spirit. But Job's story stands as a witness that devastation is not identity. Silence is not identity. A season of breaking is not identity. What happens to you is not greater than what God has spoken over you. This is why your endurance matters so much more than you realize. Every time you stayed standing when you could have given up. Every time you kept a little flame of faith alive when there was no visible reward. Every time you chose not to curse your future even while you were confused by your present. Something sacred was being formed in you. Not a shallow strength, but a weight-bearing strength. Not borrowed language, but tested faith. Not performance, but depth. The kind of depth that can only come from walking through places where nobody can carry you but God. So receive this gently now. Your pain had a pattern, but the pattern was not there to destroy you. It was there to expose what has been enduring in you all along. And if this message is meeting you in the middle of your own hidden battle, take a moment to like this message, share it with someone who needs this reminder, and subscribe so you can keep walking with these words as they unfold. And if you want to help support this work, there is also a way to donate in the description. Because what happened in Job's life was not the end of honor. It was the road through which honor became unmistakable. And what you are living through now may feel heavy, but it is not empty. God is not wasting these wounds. He is uncovering the truth that your pain tried to hide. And once that truth begins to settle in you, you will never read your story the same way again. And this is the part where the deeper truth begins to rise. Because once you understand that your pain had a pattern, you also begin to see why your difference made certain atmospheres uncomfortable. It was never only about what you said. Many times it was about what you carried before you even opened your mouth. There are people who can enter a room and blend into whatever spirit is already there, but that has never really been your story. You carry something that presses against falsehood, something that disturbs hidden things, something that does not easily make peace with darkness even when you are trying to stay quiet. That is why so much in your life has felt intensified. That is why ordinary situations often became spiritual pressure points. That is why you could feel tension where others felt nothing at all. Your difference has often been named the wrong thing. Some called it being too sensitive. Some called it being hard to understand. Some called it intensity. Some even treated your depth as a problem because they did not know what to do with a person who could feel beneath appearances. But what if that very difference is part of the reason the battle formed around you so early? What if what made you stand apart was never meant to isolate you from purpose, but to reveal that purpose more clearly? You were not made to move through life spiritually numb. You were not made to accept every surface explanation. You were not made to ignore the stirring in your spirit each time something looked normal on the outside but felt wrong underneath. That is why the story of Job still fits here with such force. Job was not only a man who suffered, he was a man whose integrity exposed something deeper than comfort. There was a quality in him that could not be measured by outward ease. And when the weight of trial fell on him, the true battle was not only about loss, it was about whether the core of who he was would be broken, whether suffering could force him to agree with a lie about God, a lie about himself, or a lie about the meaning of his life. This is where many people misunderstand the warfare around chosen ones. The attack is often aimed at identity before anything else. If your sense of who you are can be shaken, then your steps become uncertain. If your inner clarity can be clouded, then even open doors become difficult to walk through. Job faced that kind of pressure. He was surrounded by pain, then surrounded by voices trying to explain the pain in ways that did not reflect the full truth. And that is familiar to you, is it not? Not just the sorrow itself, but the misreading of the sorrow. Not just the battle, but the false interpretation laid over the battle. Some of you have suffered one season after another. And the hardest part was not only the losses. It was hearing life try to define you through those losses. It was feeling your confidence attacked until you started wondering whether your spiritual instincts could still be trusted. It was feeling your inner fire smothered under so much exhaustion that even simple decisions began to feel heavy. But this is where heaven begins to restore your sight. Because the very areas that came under the most pressure are often the same areas connected to your assignment. If your peace was attacked, it may be because your presence is meant to carry peace into chaotic places. If your voice was attacked, it may be because your words are meant to break chains of confusion. If your focus was attacked, it may be because your mind was designed to build, discern, create, and respond with unusual clarity. The enemy does not randomly target what has no future weight. There is often strategy behind the struggle, and once you begin to see that strategy, you stop calling yourself weak for battles that were never small. So hear this with calm strength. Some of what you have been fighting is not only emotional fatigue, it is mental fog, it is overload, it is the strain of carrying too much for too long while trying to stay spiritually awake. And when a person lives under that kind of pressure, they can begin to feel disconnected from their own sharpness. They know there is more in them, but accessing it feels harder than it should. They know they are capable of focus, clarity, insight, and creativity. But stress, distraction, and heaviness keep interrupting the flow. That frustration is real. It is one more way many chosen ones feel hidden from themselves. This is why some people have been drawn to tools that are said to support focus, calm, creativity, mental clarity, and better rest in a simple daily rhythm. One product some listeners may want to look into is called the Genius Wave, also known in some places as Genius Song. It is presented as a short audio program designed to be used for about 7 minutes a day, using brainwave entrainment-style sounds such as binaural beats and isochronic tones, with the goal of helping the mind settle into states associated with clearer thinking, creativity, learning, reduced stress, and deeper calm. It is described as something for people who feel mentally scattered, creatively blocked, overwhelmed, or unable to access the best of their own thinking consistently. If that sounds relevant to you, you can look for the official information in the description or the pinned comment. Be careful with imitations, fake pages, or unofficial copies, and only use the official source if you decide to try it. But even then, remember this clearly. No tool replaces discernment. No product replaces prayer. No outside support can substitute for the work God is doing in your spirit right now. What matters most is that your eyes are opening again. Your inner life is being called back into alignment. The clarity that was pressured is returning. The fire that was buried is breathing again. And just as Job stood in the place where everything seemed stripped down, only to discover that God had not lost sight of him for a single moment, you are also coming into a season where what has been hidden in you will no longer remain buried under confusion. The difference they tried to make you fear is becoming the very evidence that you were marked all along. And now you arrive at the turning point, the place where heaven no longer allows confusion to keep ruling your inner world, because there comes a moment in every chosen life when what was hidden can no longer remain buried under fear, delay, or misinterpretation. There comes a moment when the soul that has been pressed, questioned, and wearied begins to feel something stronger than sorrow. It begins to feel interruption, not the interruption of chaos, but the interruption of God, not the kind that scatters you, but the kind that stops you from going one step further in the wrong agreement. This is the hour where divine mercy does not merely comfort you. It confronts you. It pulls you out of the fog. It calls your spirit back to attention. It reminds you that you cannot live the next season of your life using the vision of the last wounded season. This is why the awakening feels both tender and intense. Part of you feels relief because you are finally seeing what was really happening. Another part of you feels shaken because you realize how much energy was lost believing things that were never true. You realize how long you carried labels that did not come from God. You realize how often you interpreted silence as abandonment, when sometimes silence was the holy space where God was separating your identity from every false definition attached to your pain. And now that space is beginning to speak. This is where many chosen ones stand at a crossroads. One path leads back into the old confusion, back into the old habit of shrinking, second-guessing, and explaining away every spiritual warning. The other path leads into obedience, and obedience is rarely dramatic at first. Often it begins with an inner decision. You decide that you will no longer call yourself forgotten when God still calls you chosen. You decide that you will no longer treat your spiritual sensitivity like a burden when it is part of your assignment. You decide that you will no longer let exhaustion write your identity for you. This is not a small moment. This is where the future begins to separate itself from the past. That is why this section of the journey feels so serious in your spirit. You are not simply being encouraged. You are being summoned. Heaven is not saying try harder. Heaven is saying, wake up to the pattern, wake up to the warfare. Wake up to the fact that what nearly buried you did not have permission to define you. Wake up to the truth that mercy has kept reaching for you even in your lowest places. There were moments you could have hardened your heart. There were moments you could have turned bitter, cynical, and unreachable. There were moments when pain invited you to make permanent vows from temporary darkness. But God kept you. Even when you were weak, He kept you. Even when you were confused, He kept you. Even when you could not hear clearly, His hand remained on your life. This is why the warning now must be received with reverence. Do not return to what nearly erased your clarity. Do not go back into agreements that cost you peace. Do not make a home in the emotional atmosphere that God is calling you out of. You already know too much now. You have seen too much now. You have felt too much now. Once revelation comes, you cannot pretend ignorance without damaging your own soul. This is not about fear. It is about alignment. It is about recognizing that every next step carries consequence, and your obedience matters more than your comfort in this hour. Job understood something of this holy turning, even if it came through fire and silence. There came a point where the arguments of men no longer carried the final weight, and the soul had to stand before God with trembling honesty. That is where true restoration begins. It does not begin when every circumstance changes. It begins when the heart bows again under truth. It begins when the inner life stops wrestling to preserve old illusions and finally says yes to what God is revealing. This is why your turning point is sacred. It is not about performance. It is about surrender. It is about coming out of confusion with a cleaner ear, a steadier spirit, and a deeper refusal to let pain become your master. One verse captures this moment with piercing clarity. Be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Romans chapter 12, verse 2. That is not a decorative verse for gentle inspiration. It is a command for survival and advancement. Your mind must be renewed because an unrenewed mind will keep reopening doors that God is trying to close. An unrenewed mind will keep mistaking familiar pain for truth. An unrenewed mind will keep resisting the very freedom it has been praying for. But when the mind begins to renew, everything starts to shift. Discernment sharpens, courage rises, old lies lose their grip. What once felt emotionally normal begins to feel spiritually unbearable, and that is a sign of growth, not weakness. So let this settle deeply now. You are not at the mercy of every thought that enters your head. You are not doomed to repeat the same cycles just because they lasted a long time. You are not condemned to live beneath the weight of what tried to break you. The God who interrupted Job in the middle of mystery is the same God who interrupts you now in the middle of exhaustion, bringing you back to the center where your identity is not built by pain, but by His voice. And when His voice becomes greater than the noise, the chains begin to fall quietly, firmly, one by one. That is what is happening here. Your spirit is being called back into order. Your mind is being pulled out of fog. Your heart is being taught again how to recognize truth. And although the road ahead still requires obedience, it no longer has to be walked in blindness. Heaven has stepped into the middle of your confusion, and because of that, you are no longer standing at the edge of the same old life. You are standing at the threshold of a different one. And this time, you will cross it with your eyes open. And when heaven begins restoring what was attacked, it does not always begin with applause or visible celebration. Often it begins in the hidden places, in the places where you almost gave up, in the places where your confidence was wounded, in the places where your voice became quiet because too many disappointments had piled up around it. Restoration begins where the theft happened. It begins where peace was interrupted. It begins where identity was challenged. It begins where purpose was pushed beneath survival. And that is why this part of your journey matters so much. Because what was stolen from you was never only external. Yes, some of you lost time, some of you lost opportunity, some of you lost relationships, stability, momentum, and a sense of direction. But even deeper than that, many of you lost clarity, you lost ease. You lost the ability to trust your own spiritual sight without second-guessing everything. And now God is going back into those inner chambers and calling those things forward again. This is not a small recovery. This is not a shallow encouragement meant to make you feel better for one night and then disappear by morning. This is deeper than emotion. This is about reclamation. The enemy wanted your pain to become permanent evidence against your future. He wanted the places where you bled to become the places where you stopped believing. He wanted your disappointments to become a language you never escaped. He wanted you to say, "This is just who I am now, tired, delayed, uncertain, cut off from joy." But God does not accept those final sentences over His chosen ones. He is able to enter the very territory where loss tried to build a throne and remove its authority piece by piece. This is why the restoration of your voice matters. Not only your speaking voice, but your inner voice. The way you speak to yourself when no one else is around. The way you interpret your own life. The way you respond to the whisper of fear. The way you answer old accusations when they try to return. For a long time, that inner voice may have been shaped by battle more than by truth. It may have become cautious, hesitant, and dimmed by repeated sorrow. But God is healing that place. He is teaching you to speak from revelation instead of reaction. He is teaching you to call yourself what He calls you, even before circumstances fully reflect it. He is teaching you to stop rehearsing defeat in a room where heaven has already begun writing restoration. Job's story carries this mystery so powerfully. He lost much, and the losses were severe, but the deepest recovery in his story was not simply material. It was spiritual clarity. It was the reordering of perspective. It was the moment when he came through the fire with a sight of God that was deeper than what existed before the breaking. That matters for you because some of what was stolen will never be restored by mere replacement. It will be restored by transformation. There are things God gives back in a different form, with a greater depth, a cleaner center, a stronger foundation. Your peace may return stronger than before because now it is no longer built on circumstances. Your discernment may return sharper than before because now it has been tested by confusion and taught to recognize truth. Your confidence may return purer than before because now it rests less on human approval and more on what God has established inside you. That is why you must not despise the slow, sacred work of recovery. Sometimes chosen ones become impatient because they want one dramatic moment to erase years of pressure. But God often restores with precision. He touches the exact places where damage was done. He heals the exact lies that were repeated over you. He strengthens the exact areas that came under the most strain. And in doing so, He makes you more solid than you were before. This is not just rescue. This is rebuilding. This is not only comfort. This is consecration. God is not merely bringing you back to where you were. In many ways, He is bringing you into something deeper than what you had before the shaking began. And this is where one verse speaks with such clean authority over your life. He restores my soul. Psalm chapter 23, verse 3. That line is simple, but it carries a weight that only those who have been inwardly drained can fully understand. The soul needs restoration when it has been overworked by grief, fear, disappointment, and invisible war. The soul needs restoration when too much has been carried without relief. The soul needs restoration when identity has been pressured, when peace has been punctured, when hope has been stretched thin. But the promise remains. He restores my soul, not people alone, not time alone, not distraction alone. He restores my soul. So let that truth settle where the damage once spoke louder. The God who kept Job through the unthinkable is still the God who restores what pain tried to scatter. He restores your steadiness. He restores your spiritual appetite. He restores your ability to hear without panic, to wait without collapsing, to love without surrendering discernment, to move without asking permission from every old wound. He restores the part of you that almost disappeared under the weight of long battles. He restores the quiet strength that survives after tears. He restores the holy courage that does not shout but stands. And because restoration is already moving, this is the moment to make your agreement with it. Comment, "God restores me." Let those words be simple, but let them come from a heart that is tired of living beneath what God is lifting off you, because what was stolen is not remaining silent forever. Your voice will speak again. Your peace will settle again. Your purpose will rise again. And the very areas that once looked broken beyond repair will become evidence that God still enters ruined places and brings them back to life with His own hand. This is not the end of your story. This is the part where what was hidden begins to answer back. And now you can feel it, not as a distant promise, but as something moving under your feet, something steady, something undeniable, because the season that tried to reduce you is losing its grip, and the identity they tried to bury is rising with clarity. This is the part they never expected. They expected the pressure to make you smaller. They expected the waiting to make you quieter. They expected the betrayal to make you bitter, the delay to make you doubtful, and the confusion to make you forget who you are. But what they could not understand is that God does not waste the wilderness in the life of a chosen one. He uses it. He sanctifies it. He turns hidden pain into holy strength. And He brings people through fire with something in them that cannot be manufactured by comfort. That is why you are not coming out of this season empty-handed. You are coming out with sight. You are coming out with discernment. You are coming out with a deeper spiritual backbone than you had before. You are coming out with the kind of faith that does not depend on applause, because it has already survived silence. And that matters because where you are going next will require more than emotion. It will require steadiness. It will require a mind that no longer bows to every old lie. It will require a heart that remembers what God has done, even when the path ahead still stretches beyond your understanding. This is where the rise begins. Not the rise of pride, not the rise of self-importance, but the rise of alignment. You stop trying to be accepted by atmospheres that were never assigned to carry you. You stop apologizing for the depth God placed in you. You stop treating your spiritual discernment as though it were a flaw. You stop calling yourself broken when heaven calls you chosen, refined, and set apart. The rise begins when agreement changes. It begins when your mouth stops echoing the language of pain and starts speaking the language of truth. It begins when your inner life finally says, "I will not bow to what tried to name me in my weakest hour." Job came through the storm carrying this kind of quiet authority. He was not the same man on the other side of suffering, not because pain made him glorious, but because God met him there and brought him through. There is a weight that enters a person who has seen their world stripped down and still discovered that God remains. There is a steadiness that cannot be faked after the soul has been tested and restored. That is what is happening to you now. Your life is not being rebuilt on illusion. It is being rebuilt on encounter, on truth, on the hard-won realization that God kept you when nothing else seemed stable. That kind of knowing changes the way a person walks. It changes the way they choose. It changes the way they pray. It changes the way they rise. So let this become prayer now, soft but strong, simple but full of authority. Father, in the name of Jesus, thank you for not losing sight of this chosen one even in the darkest season. Thank you for keeping them when they were too tired to explain what they were carrying. Thank you for preserving their life, their mind, their spirit, and the calling placed over them. I ask you now to complete the work you have begun in them. Heal what was wounded, lift what was weighed down, untangle every lie that attached itself to their identity through pain. Restore their peace, restore their clarity, restore their courage, and restore the sound of truth within them. Let every chain of confusion break. Let every false label fall. Let every hidden gift begin to breathe again under your hand. Teach them to walk forward without fear, without apology, and without agreement with the past that tried to imprison them. Surround them with your wisdom. Guard their mind in the night. Strengthen them in quiet places, and let their life become living evidence that what you choose, no darkness can destroy. Amen. Receive that prayer not as empty words, but as a covering over this hour. You are not leaving this message the way you entered it. Something has been named. Something has been exposed. Something has been reclaimed. And once God begins that kind of unveiling, the old life cannot hold you the same way again. You may still have steps to take, habits to break, boundaries to set, and decisions to make. But now you make them with revelation. Now you make them knowing that your story was never random. Now you make them knowing that even the places of loss were not beyond God's reach. That is why your next season cannot be measured by the same lens that measured your last one. Your next season is not about barely surviving another wave. It is about walking with greater clarity through what once would have crushed you. It is about carrying peace into places where you used to carry panic. It is about hearing God faster than you hear fear. It is about becoming the kind of person who no longer needs constant external confirmation because truth has gone deep enough to hold you steady. This is the rise they could not stop, because it does not come from their permission. It comes from God's timing. And if these words have walked with you through a real battle, take a moment to like this message. Share it with someone who is still trying to understand the pressure around their life, and subscribe so you can stay connected to this stream of truth and encouragement. And if you want to help support this work and keep these messages reaching others, there is a way to donate in the description. Do not be afraid of what comes next. You are not stepping into it unguarded. You are stepping into it marked by mercy, sharpened by truth, and carried by the same God who kept Job through what looked impossible. What was hidden is being revealed. What was shaken is being rebuilt. What was stolen is answering back. And you, beloved chosen one, are rising into a season that will no longer be ruled by what tried to bury you. The battle was real, but so was the hand of God. The sorrow was real, but so was the keeping of God. The confusion was real, but so is the revealing of God. And now the road opens before you, not empty, not uncertain, but full of the quiet thunder of divine purpose. Walk forward with your eyes open. Walk forward with your spirit awake. Walk forward knowing that heaven has spoken, and what heaven has spoken over you will stand.